Okay. As the men say, my name is Fitzgerald Wilson. I'm the manager of Ashanti, who's with Ashanti is a service that is sort of run by the African and Caribbean community. All right. Okay. There. Yeah. Is that better? Yeah. Okay.
We want to see your handsome face.
Oh, you want to see my face? How many people would like to see my face? See?
It's distracting you from what you're saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's better now? Yeah. You happy? Yeah. Okay. Basically, what we're saying that Ashanti was set up to be a culturally sort of specific service for chiefly African Caribbean people in Luton. We also work with African people as well, and it's basically a social care sort of service. Yeah. Nyabingi itself is a user organization that sort of springs out of the belly of Ashanti. The users who was using Ashanti at the time. Chidozie here, I will let him introduce himself because he's quite capable of doing that. is going to sort of share some of the experiences as a service user, but basically because Nyabinga's got a newsletter and Chidozie is the chief sort of reporter who like to interview people, Nyabinga's decided to put him on the spot. So I'm going to interview him today. Okay? So if you introduce yourself, Chidozie.
My name is Chidozie Zogu. I've had many spells in hospital, mental health, since the year 2000, and I compile the Nyabingi newsletter, which covers aspects that are occurring in Nyabingi over a monthly period, and it comes out every month. It should be on the intranet for those who do have access to it.
Okay. First of all, we're going to go back from the very sort of beginning, Chidozie, about what happened. How did your sort of journey within the mental health service sort of begun?
Basically, it started off essentially when I was in university. I was in my third year of university in East London, Queen Mary and Westfield, and I had a lot of problems with my studying, and while I was interacting with people I had a lot of problems, and I was talking to my project supervisor, and we had many conversations during the course of the year, and I didn't really like what he was saying, and I didn't think it made a lot of sense. And so I would go back and I would do my studies, and during the course of the year we would just have many conversations about, it was philosophical conversations that didn't really mean anything to everyday life. And so when it came to my exams in the final year, I felt that I underachieved, and I went into my project supervisor's laboratory, and we had a fight, and so he called the police, and the police came to the campus and they arrested me, and I went to the police station and got charged with assault.
Okay, so you had a fight with your tutor, and then you were taken to the police station, and then was it from there that you were sort of diagnosed, or what happened? You were at the police station.
I went to the police station. They gave me a lawyer and things like this, and they allowed me to go home that night. They allowed me to go home pending court appearances, and so I went home. I relaxed. I took all the stress off my head, and later on that month we got phone calls from the police station saying we had to go to court. So we went to many court appearances. We had many court appearances. appearances. I think it was about 3 or 4. And my solicitor was very supportive, and she put forward a good case for me. And so they, instead of sending me to prison for assault, they sent me to Oakley Court Mental Hospital, which is where I went. And then I ran away from Oakley Court and I got put into Orchard.
Okay. Orchard, is the Orchard a secure unit?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
okay.
a secure unit.
Okay. Okay. So when were you diagnosed, and what was the sort of diagnosis?
While I was in Orchard, I didn't like the experience, first of all, and I didn't like the medication they were giving me. And while I was in Orchard, I asked them what is my diagnosis, and they told me it was a paranoid psychosis, which I'd never heard the term before. So they just diagnosed me as paranoid psychosis.
Okay. So how did you feel at the time? I mean, because you're a young man in university, third year degree. Then all of a sudden all this happened. So I mean.
Yeah, I wasn't very happy. I was very distressed at the time. I kept phoning my mom to say, "You have to get me out of here," because I was aware that they had I think it was a 48-hour discharge portion whilst you're in section, where if your parents or your carers or somebody from your home environment wrote a letter to the doctor saying you could get discharged, or that they wanted you home, that you could get discharged. And I kept phoning my mum to say, "Get me out of hospital, get me out of hospital," because I didn't want to be in hospital. And the medication was making me feel drowsy. I was getting stretch marks on my body, and I just the way I felt was terrible, because I just came out of university and I couldn't see any reason for anybody to judge my mental health. To me, it was my mental health wasn't an issue. It was to me it was just simply a fright that I had, and it was a bad situation, and I was put into hospital for it. It didn't seem like the natural thing to do.
Okay. The next question I want to ask you: how has your mental problem impacted on your life since?
It's had a very profound effect on my life. I've had numerous social workers, and I've been on Dipixel medication on many occasions, and I've been put back into hospital, you know, like on a yearly basis since the year 2000, and it didn't make much sense to me why that was happening. The impact it had on my life was I found it hard to get jobs. My self-esteem went down. It just seemed like my life wasn't going the way it should have been going, and I couldn't see any reason for it. And my links with my family have been they have been strained, and they've it's just things haven't worked out the way I would have liked to, or the way I had initially planned it to. So I think there are loads of factors that contribute to that, but I hope they're in your next question.
Okay. The next question is basically, what are your views about the service you've received so far? The first part of the question is about if you could sort of tell me about the weakness of the service, the way it could improve. And the second part, and I will repeat it too, if you want me to do it after a while, the strengths of the service, things that you're happy with, that sort of thing. Okay. So if we do the first part.
For the first part, to answer your first part, the problems I've had was the social element. The social element they were telling, social workers were telling me that I had problems interacting with my family. I had problems mixing with people, and I felt that as far as my health was concerned, my physical health and my mental health was concerned, these things weren't actually true. You know, the social workers, I think, had a big impact on my going back into hospital after my first admittance. If I had an argument with my mum would phone social workers, and before I know it, an ambulance would come to my house, and they'd put me on section, and I couldn't see it. It didn't make any sense, you know. I think you can get typecasted. There's a stigma. You know, people say, oh, well, if you go for a job and you explain what you've been doing in the past year or so, and you say you've had a spell in a mental hospital, they're not so likely to employ you. And I think, you know, being African Caribbean as well, you get typecasted, and you know, society has a way of oppressing people, so you can very easily get oppressed, and you could be a victim of a bad situation, and it can have a more intense effect on you, and it could crush a person. It could crush a person. So I think it's had a really detrimental effect on my personal life, and as far as achieving my goals are concerned, it's had a detrimental effect. As far as the second part is concerned.
Yeah, the second part was basically, what do you see are the strengths of the service? You know, the things that you're happy with. I mean, the service, I don't think it can be all bad, is it? Or
No, well, I don't know. The good points are coming to Ashanti, Nyabingi. I get to meet people who have been in similar situations, and it's a good stepping stone to getting back into society, or getting back into a better lifestyle. It builds confidence, and you get to voice your opinion and say your views. So I think that's been a positive, the Ashanti Nyabingi aspect of things. And I think I guess you do get supported by the state. The state supports you, gives you incapacity benefit and things like that, but it's not a lot of money, and you can sometimes take that for granted, and you get lazy, and you can get stagnated and lead a lifestyle that is not really like everybody else. You can't lead a normal lifestyle because you have to minimalize everything. You have to watch what you spend and watch what's coming in, and you know, you have no sense of self. You have a low sense of self-worth, and you don't get to deal with a lot of responsibilities. So I think having said the fact that the state does look after you, which is a good thing, there are other factors which can make things worse for you.
Okay, thanks. The next question that I really want to answer is, how does other service users, because I know that you're involved in Nyabingi, you talk to a lot of service users,
Yeah.
you talk to other, service users as well. How does other service users feel about the service? Do they feel generally the same way about it as you do, or is a variety of different views?
I've spoken to loads of service users recently, and especially in Nyabingi, and they share the same views. A lot of them share the same views, and you can get into bouts of depression and things like that. It's really hard I think one service user that's mentioned something to me and it stuck out in my mind was the fact that the medication they give you is it puts you in a state which you wouldn't like to be in. You feel drowsy, you feel stiff, sometimes you dribble, and that the medication. Personally, I didn't think it was helping my mental well-being. It wasn't really helping me in any way or form. The medication. It was just putting me in a situation where doctors could dictate to you even more so how your life should be led, and that's not good. And there's a lack of freedom, but other service users have shared my views, but it's not been I guess it's not been as intense.
Okay. That's the final question.
Yeah.
Final question. Yeah. If you had the power, right,
Yeah.
to change the mental health system in Luton.
Yeah.
Let's just start with Luton, right? What would be the first thing you do? You would change. What would be the first thing? That's a difficult question.
Yeah, it is. I would make it easier for people to get rehabilitation and back into work, because I'm in a situation where I'm separated from my family. I'm living in a self-contained flat, and I'm having to rely on benefits to pay bills and other things like that. And if you look at the way society is and the rest of society, life doesn't really work like that. I can't, from a personal point of view, you can't just live in a house on your own and not work. So I think they should make it that much easier for people to get rehabilitated and get back into work so they can support themselves, because financially it has been difficult.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chelsea.
Looking back on the period of time that you said that you went into hospital initially, do you think now that you had a mental illness when you was initially admitted?
That's a very good question. I think that I did have problems, but I don't think that I don't feel that I should have gone into a mental hospital, one, and I think that there's a grey patch with respect to mental health illness and not having a mental illness, and I think that believing in God, having faith in God, can help you and can draw you out of that position. So personally, I don't think at the time I had a mental illness, because I think believing in God, you can come out of that situation and you can be saved from being in a very harsh a very sticky situation.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
If you've got questions asked, do you want to come more to the front so that
I must say I was very dumbfounded, angry, mad at the reality of the experience you've been through. The question I want to ask is, with all you've been through in the last 4 years, do the police, the hospital, the doctors, are they now aware that there was actually nothing wrong with you and that they've actually made you ill as a result of your experience?
No. I still go to my outpatient appointments. I still have sessions with my social worker, and they deal with confidence building and things like that. So it's just a case of being institutionalized, which a lot of people try to avoid. So I have many views on the whole mental health system, and I think it's a very dark form of oppression. It can oppress you. So they haven't said to me, no, you don't have a mental illness. They actually this year they actually told me, well, we believe it's developing to schizophrenia. So, and I disagreed, but you can't argue. If you get violent or if you get angry, they can misinterpret it for a person having a mental illness, and they could, and before you know it, you could be on your way to being put into hospital.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say I'm a professional person myself. I'm in the nursing background, and I've never really come across anything like this. And I think what we're sharing today should not just be in this little room. I just feel so burdened and angry somehow for what I'm hearing today, and I think this should be taken to a national level. This sort of experience, it should be in the media. This sort of experiences shouldn't just be in the corner somewhere in Luton. And I hope, the Ashanti group or the Yambingi group, you take this further than what we're seeing here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm actually one of the nurses who looked after Chidozie.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see you well and, speaking out and saying exactly how you feel, because often we don't always get the feedback as to how the experience has been. But at the same time, what we're trying to do here is to promote the services that we do have available. And what I don't want is for it to be seen as if it's all negative. Chidozie's experience is his experience. We can't take that away from him. But at the same time, Chidozie, you mentioned outside of the inpatient stay, the outpatient unit, the Nyabingi and the Ashanti. Is there anything at all that was good about your being in the inpatient setting? Was there anything at all that was good about that?
Nothing. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all. I think because people are on medication, the doctors just look at you as a. They create an underclass. It seems like they create an underclass, and they look down on you and they typecast you. It's very easy to get typecasted. But I'm not knocking people. I'm not saying, oh, you shouldn't be in this line of work. I'm just saying I didn't like it. It was a very strange thing for me.
I can appreciate that, but what I would also like to say is that as a nurse, it's not the easiest of job to deal with somebody who doesn't recognize, first of all, that they have a problem. I mean, since I've been nursing, I have not seen a case where somebody's been literally dragged in for something other than mental illness and treated for mental illness. I don't know if it's happened in the past, but in my line of work, where I'm working, it's always a case where we strive to promote their own opinion, how they feel. We look at that, we look at their issues, we look at their social and spiritual issues on a very holistic level. So for me, I see where you're coming from, Chidozie, but I also don't want for it to be seen as if the service is failing everybody, because it isn't. It isn't. We can't take away your experience because that's how you feel. And it's nice to get the feedback. But I don't want the wrong picture to go out as well. And as I say, it's speaking from as the point of view of one of the nurses who nursed Chidozie.
Thank you. Yeah, you. Sorry, John. If you have a question, could you come down? Because that's what's happening. People say, why I've had my hand up for a long time, why? Because I can't see it. So if you come down and line up so orderly, then I can see systematically who's first, who's second.
Can I say that the reason for the first conference and this follow-up conference was based around the Bennett's inquiry that actually raised these issues. And one of the issues that it actually raised was the fact that as African and Caribbean people, that we have grave concerns about the institution, that we are afraid of the institution. That is what actually came out of the inquiry. The other thing, one recommendation was that staff should receive training in the assessment of BME, particularly the effects of racism on mental well-being. So it isn't about necessarily attacking any particular service. It is saying these are the real issues that we are having to grapple with, and to actually hear what you are saying, somebody who's actually been through the experience. And I guess if for David Bennett, he's not here, he isn't able to voice, but he's left through his death a legacy whereby from the grave, if you like, these issues can actually be raised that are a real concern to us, that for a young man to be involved in a fight and find himself through the judicial system into the mental health, in the mental health institution. You're not the only one. I think this is what was actually being said. And it's really good to have you here to be able to speak on behalf of those who've never had opportunity, who've never had the voice to be able to express those things. So I just really want to bring us back to the fact that this is the reason why this conference has been put on, so that we are able to deal with the recommendations, so that we're able to look critically as what has happened and how we can apply solutions to the problem. It's not about throwing stones at
I would like to mention something to the nurse, as Pastor is saying here. The reason here we are meeting is not just to judge institutions. It's some kind of, we, all of us, we are learning. When we are meeting together, we hear from young people what is going on. There are so many of them that don't have even this opportunity to voice. But we have, you should take note what he's talking, what we are doing, because you are like our representative within the institutions. We appreciate what you are doing for us. Really, we appreciate it. And we know all of us. My experience myself, I have one child who is disabled, learning difficulty. So every morning I have a difficulty even to wash him, to prepare him to go to special school. Without being parent, no one can take care of him. Okay. But I know because I'm the parent. Every day morning I have to wake up him, and he resists. He said no. But I can't fight with him to say, yes, you have to wash your body, or you have to take this clothes. But you can't voice him. But you have to learn. We have to learn all this. So thank you for your help, but we learn all of us. And thank you for voicing that. And I think what you are doing now, you try to give confidence for all of us. And don't give up. The only thing I'm going to tell you, myself, I have African background. All of you come from Africa. Caribbean is second country, you come there, but without your willingness. But remember that since people come from Caribbean to this country, you lose your roots.
Yes.
But the only thing to cope with these problems is to bring and to breed family relationship. Your family. That's how we should work, all of us. Because many of our children, they are going around without any reference. What we use, even in our communities, in African communities living here, there are so many problems. But we used to meet some couple of families. If there is a problem, I meet a parent for this family. I told them, I hear that, I hear that, I hear that. But we have to be careful with children, with this, with this. Yes, many of them, they are involved in the fight. But we always think first family counseling. Family counseling is very important. And then we have to refer with our culture, our tradition. You have to do that, you have to do that, you have to do that. But we support. I think from now, with Dignity and the other institutions, we should start ourselves to breed our own networking, our family culture. Because every time when you see him, he wanted to institutions, but they broke down him. But there was few things, fighting, but they injected him with many products. He lost his life. But at the same time, he couldn't be served for 4 years because he got support. How many times families from your families got support? You got family support. How many times?
How many times did I get family support? My mother was very supportive, and I can't say really my brother and sister were that supportive, but my mum was very supportive.
And she was alone.
Yeah.
And if you see, always our mothers, they are very sensitive. And when she's going with her, sometimes crying, sometimes without someone to support. Because of what is going on with our African roots. Mothers, they are crying, but the father is saying, don't worry, everything will be okay. Don't worry. And after father will be uncles. Uncle from mothers, uncle from fathers. After that, there will be families. I think we have to breed this from family roots. Because I can see the poor world, women, going along to support only one, her son. We should breed family support. This is very important. Otherwise, we will break down every day, because institutions, they are there, they have their own.
Started in Uganda as a sort of freedom fighting group when the English were colonized sort of Uganda, and some of the freedom fighters were trying to get them out, basically. Yeah, the drum, it's associated with a lot of things, with drumming, the chanting, the messages that the drums sent that the English didn't understand, that that sort of thing was a part of the strategy, the fighting strategy. After a while in the 60s, the Rastafarian movement in Jamaica sort of take over the drumming bit and make it their own as well. So it epitomized the struggle, the struggle of black people, the struggle to free yourself from mental slavery, basically. Yeah.
Deja vu. A lot of this has been happening during the 70s. Rastafari ideas, they didn't understand the language, and the system used to misinterpret what the Afro-Caribbean was saying, because there was loads of social pressures, and they used to take the young guys away. Loads of fights is always in the equation, and they always end up in court and in a mental institute. now in the 21st century, in my view, the 21st century is about enlightenment. We have a young man here at the height of academic achievement, because where were you? You were at university, yeah?
Queen Mary was
Queen Mary, yeah, university. In my view, you had a fracas with a, what was it, a professor?
a doctor.
Right, it was a doctor, because he was giving you his philosophy, and obviously that affected your mental state. How do we get from there into a mental institution? That bit, I just can't come to terms with that, especially in the 21st century. Your mind can recover, and in my view, you are of a sound mind. The way you're articulating, you are expressing intelligence. And yet, you are giving us a story where you're at the bottom and you can't get back up. To me, that sounds like injustice to me. That sounds like the entire system is against this young man here. This young man here has demonstrated he has intelligence. Do you understand? Mind over matter, sir. Not matter over mind. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, exactly what you said. When I was in London, under the training of a professor and a doctor, classically, privately, exactly the same thing I was saying. That's what she taught me. I can see there are many pigmentism hair, but it doesn't matter. You are Africans, Indians, Asians, or white. That's not the case. Especially the black people. When I came in this country, I heard Winston Churchill says, to keep a black down, you have to put them in a group. And then Macmillan come after that. He emphasized the same thing. What the doctor told me as a black, intelligent and wise and strong, sometimes aggressive. What they do, they say they will hallucinate you by injections to take away your control, your authority of your life. By claiming you are, what you call the names when you're mental, what they schizophrenia. And you are not. The nurse speak on the behalf, you look after you. But the nurse don't know that. She is there to work, and what they say to them to observe. But those professors deliberately by the society to keep a strong, a black man, intelligent man away from the community. If he's aggressive and he is in the community, it's a danger to the community. I learned that from the professor. All what they done to you, they saw your intelligence and they see your quick temper. You become aggressive to the society. What they do, they mentally. Instead, they take care and look after you, they mentally. You are not a mental man at all. That's caused by the hands of the society. Create that problems. I learned that. If you stand up on your feet and demand, you are the senior of everybody that is there, understand the mental situations. I believe those who are back of all these institutions have a task on their hands. to search for an intelligent young man like you, when the doctors send them to institution, to stand for that person, either a boy or a girl, and to demand their rights. That's what the institution advocacy there for now. You too, young man. When you see you have somebody come to you, and the doctor, I had contest with the doctor, I got a doctor nearly to say, and he want to give certain injections. He not, if you ever give that child any that injections, I will go straight to a certain person and sue the hospital. She began to talk to me exactly how I'm talking to you. He never gave her any. The battle is for those who take the institution seriously. For the rights of those who don't have the rights. You are the one, I know bro, very well. My brother there is one as well. To fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. These are ex-soldiers. Soldiers are not there to fight for themselves. They fight for those who cannot fight and protect those who cannot protect themselves. Those things are deliberately manifest, downgraded black people. It could be, I don't care who is there, I will tell them that exactly the same thing they had pictured in their books. Deliberately doing it. In this town, in London, wherever you go, to keep the black people down without educations and to stay in the same way of the slavery times. That mental those people. It is something that young man have to teach you concerning himself. Because he is a senior of it. He experienced it. We have to stand with him. We have to stand with the institutions and tell them they are wrong. What they do to our people, we stand for them. That's all I have to say.
I'm going to put myself on the spot here now, because I work for Luton Social Services, I work for Ashanti, I work with people who are recovering from mental ill health, and yes, whilst I've heard stories like Chidoz's before, I'm not trying to belittle him in any way, I've also come across people, the point what I'm making here is that I do believe there is such a thing as mental illness. And I also want to say that we have to move away from this, they don't understand us no more, da 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 da. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if you look in the institutions now, you'll see that there's a lot of black professionals working in the institutions. You'll see that there's a lot of black psychiatrists working in the institutions. And as I said, I'm not trying to belittle Chidaz's experience. Yes, it's happened in the past, and it may well have happened again. But we please need to stay focused and remember that there is such a thing as mental illness. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? You talked about your education and the fact that you were in university. Can you tell me, now that you've been diagnosed or whatever, you've been through all the services, what's happening about your education? Is it all lost? Has it been all lost? Or is there somebody that's helping you to achieve your full potential, educationally wise?
Educationally, I haven't gone back to my studies, but they did write to me. My university wrote to me, and they said they were sorry that I'd been in a mental institution, and they gave me my degree on the credit of what I did in the third year because I did all my exams.
So the service users now, this lady was talking about a timeline earlier. I didn't really understand. Does the timeline stop now? Has it gone on for you? Is there something that you can do in the future?
A timeline? How do you mean by a timeline?
The lady was talking about a timeline of things happening in your life. So do you have something that you can maybe work towards? Maybe resume your education? You talked about finding a job, getting back into the employment.
Yeah.
Maybe you need education to retrain or something.
Yeah.
Are there services that can help you resume your education?
Obviously, there are services that can help me. They have a section in the job centre for people who have had mental illness. I think they call it the disability. I'm not sure what it's exactly called, but the disability section. And no, I have not resumed my studies. Basically because after going into hospital in the year 2000, I went in again in the year 2001. Then I went in again in late 2001, and again in 2003. So it just yeah. So I haven't really had a chance to recapture my studies.
This debate is a very complex debate. The point I want to make is, it's not so much a question, but I feel as though that the individuals that actually put in place directive as to how they define mental health and how people come into the mental health system and diagnosed with mental health is not really here. But I think I really want to say that there are situations in society which actually contributes to people suffering mental health. While I acknowledge there is such a thing as mental health, I think individuals need to see themselves as players in different fields and different areas, and it's more sinister than as they try to put it across, the people who suffers with it, mainly black people as it were. I feel that there are doors that open and shut, and I feel we need to slam those doors open, especially with the presentation we had about early intervention and so forth, or early signs. When they're talking about going into schools and speaking to children 14 plus or even younger, I think there's a big picture here. Yes, there are people who get into the system of mental health because it is diagnosed that they're eventually suffering with the symptoms and the effects of mental health. And of course they need attention, of course they need service, they need assistance. And there are people like nurses and so forth, psychiatrists, to deal with that because of the results of suffering with this condition. So yes, there is a place for service, and yes, there is mental health. But it's about slamming shut the doors that actually opens when the pressures in society creates the condition that young people, mainly young people, black people, experience and throws them into these episodes. And I think we'd be naive if we think there is no mental health, and also to think that there aren't situations that actually induces mental health for black people in particular. And it's about shutting the doors. It's okay saying we're looking after those who suffer it, but what about preventing the causes of mental health in the first place, and also looking at the hierarchy, if you like. Take it away from the doctors, look at the politicians, look at those systems that's there to oppress and is oppressive. I think it's a much wider picture than just somebody suffering mental health.
Yeah.
before?
Right, no, employment opportunities are run by the Prince's Trust.
Yeah.
So they're a charity, and we've had lots of dealings with them, and they are an excellent organisation. I'll give you a number. They look at education, they look at work, they look at doing CVs, they look at doing interview techniques, they look at placing you and giving you chances to try things out to see if you like it, you fit in, and all sorts of stuff. And they're really very, very supportive. So.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Doing in order to support people within our community. How do we see mental health? And you know, to hear this young man, what he's actually sort of saying, because he's been diagnosed to have a mental health problem, his employment prospect diminishes. Okay, perhaps people may walk the other side of the street because they know this man has had a mental health problem. What are we doing as a community with regards to supporting those within our community? We need to stop throwing stones at those issues. We know what the problems are. They're there. But let's focus on some practical solutions where we take responsibility as a community and say, look, this is what we can do. And very much what Bonnie said, you know, this thing about family. Okay, as a family, you know, how can we continue to support each other? And really appreciate the work that people like Fitzroy and Keith are doing in Ashanti, to be able to recognize that, for us to be able to say, well, that is where we need to put resources into the work that they're doing. Thank you, Cliff, for the early intervention. There is a need for early intervention. There is a need to inform our children about strategies to maintain their mental wellness. You know, as you're going through there, bells just began to ring in my head. You know, what can I do as a community leader? What can I do as a minister in order to work with yourself and to make people aware of the different support structure that is there within the community? Okay, so lunch is that right, Emma? Lunch is ready. Some very hungry people here. We are somewhat running behind time. Would half an hour be sufficient?